good? Okay. Is everyone else good?
Yep.
Well, we think good.
As far as we're at.
Advantage 1 is decarbonization. Domestic decarbonization is inevitable and ongoing. That makes American firms significantly more carbon efficient than foreign firms. For instance, 23, the U.S. is one of the most carbon efficient economies documented in the OECD. The U.S. companies are facing consumer demand for decarbonization. The U.S. is abundant natural resource. The U.S. gas displacing coal continued 20% drop in emissions since 2005. 2021, 80% of new green capacity from renewables is continue with an influx of investments for the infrastructure act. The IRA policies that cover emissions and trade would hand producers a competitive advantage. But decarbonization is costly and collapses American economic competitiveness. A border tax on energy-intensive imports revitalizes American industry. Milko 23, the IRA marks a turning point policy to stop climate change. Steve Equilibrium is carbon intensive imports will bring competitiveness to domestic. Cleaner goods manufactured in the U.S. and EU are subject to more stringent like regulations of emissions goals, and competitors manufacturers are not rewarded for lower carbon import fees. For rewarding sustainable production for incentivized decarbonization to stay competitive, to narrow the practices of importing goods to offshore manufacturing. Declining competitiveness causes extinction through deterrence failure. Johnson 24, the U.S. is no longer capable of turning aggressive proposed diplomatic initiatives have not lessened North Korea rhetoric counter sea, which I want all Russian invasion for preventing Iran's actions against Israel. The U.S. stands on the sidelines, holding a hope that they do not escalate, reach broader question viability of deterrence. Is an industrial strength to be allowed to weaken industrial strength as a backstop makes negotiation sanctions and military status ineffective without the industrial health efforts are hollow shifted towards the commercial sector, foster preference for overseas product to health decline. Policies must encourage industry. An emissions-based performance border carbon adjustment drives both global and domestic decarbonization as firms compete for U.S. market share. Fishman et al. 24. Recent policies lower domestic emissions, but too little to global emissions fees on import rates and incentive for foreign countries manufacture to reduce emissions reductions in the U.S. emissions create competitive pressure for overseas producers to keep pace. The policy gives U.S. companies an incentive to invest in decarbonization to maintain competitive advantage. Only border adjustments prevent leakage. That's key to effective climate solutions. Schroeder and Straka 24. Governments have incentive for right carbon leakage enterprise policies to empirical evidence such as taxes to leakage, taxes to reduce territorial emissions, consumption emissions fall less. The implications are not limited to taxes, amount of subsidies, and other instruments. National policies impact global emissions only if accompanied by CBMs. Climate change causes extinction through cascading complex system failure. Mitigation is key. Adaptation causes existential termination shock. Richards et al. 24. Emissions rise are warming above 30 degrees. Likely feedback is starting to exacerbate runaway warming. 8 degrees climate change was an extension risk climate around ag and disrupt food, which leads to economic shock, social, political instability, migration, conflict, and global scale understanding of worst case scenarios is underdeveloped. Increased complexity and increased vulnerabilities. Interconnected landscape, secret cascading failures create potential for collapse of rapidly spread across the scale, global scale food, public grand trash, and food insecurity contribute to societal collapse, to institutional breakdowns, climate change, accidentals, misguided threats, all binary, that could researchers call for essential risk with the advanced climate change, not a single uniform process that has diffuse impacts that be activating risk cascades and interact with other threats with security, societal collapse, volcanic eruptions, and zoonotic pathogens. These create reinforcing global death spirals. Authors answerable direct impacts makes Earth's uninhabitable. These are entirely different questions. Catastrophic warming, underrepresented analysis or hard. There are comments, culture, or air unsustainably strongly possible coming campaigns so now it creates sense for conservative science that builds consensus emergency responses such as SAI, contributed system aggressive pose, termination shock, calamity, deactivate system. This is significantly accelerated warming. SAI found the tail or worst case scenarios. Advantage 2 is trade. The plan catalyzes a restructuring of the international trade system away from pure liberalization towards a solution-oriented model of trade that diffuses rising backlash to hyper-globalization work. 21. Worries BCA's park trade wars are overall BCA's improved cooperation as an instrument that facilitate climate goals for basic trade rules so the better serve interests essential. The current regime undermines policies that undermine and accomplish wage increases, human rights, and serious supply chain rules of trade cannot compensate climate leaders. Governments are facing growing pressure to limit trade. These protections and policies such the trade recruiter means that instruments cannot differentiate attributes of good without the direction of global economic order, spread charity against trade, constrain domestic progress, and reward bad actors. Even use make up 40% of global economy. These are the most attractive markets in the world. BCA's herald off fundamental change to the trade regime and shelter and movement of ash for permanent trade rules or rules benefit trade are too important for growing economies. Likely countries look to avoid liability or reducing emissions that need a lot of action must come first. Climate security starting point for thinking agreements. It provides a proof of concept for mission-driven trade that can survive successive administrations. Sutton 23. Biden seeks to reform globalization. USCR words described a less efficient word. Reorganized by climate change and improve livelihoods of workers. New Washington consists of a focus on core challenges. This is ambitious talk about Biden's plans for shaky trade policy with little to show in concrete outcomes like the future administration latitude progress and old approaches to community return to Trump's skepticism. This makes clear how urgent it is Biden's declining on trade. Assuming the elections will be there still one opportunity to separate by striking deal to create a market for local government between the U.S. and Europe. These represent the best opportunity for Biden to provide a proof of concept for its vision. Otherwise, collapsing support for globalization causes extinction through rising inequality, populism, climate change, pandemics, and war. Alconjo Iwala 23. Interdependence is under attack shocks, a first financial crisis and COVID. Now Ukraine created an alternative area to globalization, exposes and perverse interdependence. It's why some new ventures and independence and polycrisis are necessary to be challenges such as climate change and inequality. Pandemics, globalization need to be reimagined. The U.S. and China sought to for terrorism, pandemic, and Ukraine will expose mononex governments and active organizations that deglobalization remains at odds with data trade. Low breaking levels in 2020 trade can reduce emissions. Countries focus on what they are relatively green. That makes sense to import energy intensive products in places that with low carbon energy. This works only when policy are placed so environmental costs so internalized. Governments can compare each other's economic policies, trade fit, and lift when ability to go out of poverty as economy decline. Between countries in economy with advanced economies increase when the financial crisis, the public extremism, and the trade becoming easy scapegoats of political disruption underscore importance about cushioning impacts of trade by its prospering incentive to avoid conflict and reform. WTO fit for the centuries needed to avoid unforeseen crises to really lie about the trade. The world will be less able to weather them. Plan reduces supply chain vulnerability through and friend shoring. Fishman et al. 24. improving critical supply chains from semiconductors or critical metals, WCA reduce investment to the U.S. and countries with lower emissions, which are U.S. allies. WCA promotes supply diversity. China is the primary supplier of 24 50 minerals, which deem critical Chinese interior 5 times more emissions intensive than counterparties that incentivize the reshoring of production, growth, processing, and assembly. WCA weaken Chinese dominance over supply chains. Supply chain disruptions cause conflict, escalation. Martin 21. Supply chain disruptions impact national security, economy, well-being, health, and production of infrastructure shortages, drive aggressive paper and structural instability of economy, tremendous and tremendous disruptions spill into adjacent sectors of economies, will impact disruptions our nation's ability to defend examples of raw materials and semiconductor nations have gone to war over shortages or sector markets explicit in Germany and Japanese actions into World War II, even during interdependence such as in Europe prior to World War I. The plan creates a US-EU coalition that breaks Russia's energy export dominance. Work 22. There's a way to neutralize Russian promote energy independence. WCA terms that Atlantic fee enhance energy security. Russian natural gas comes with 40% more life cycle emissions than US LNG. This creates an opportunity for US exports to reduce reliance on Russia. Europe will cooperate. Saha and Kaufman. 23. The EU initially funded the IRA with frustration at protections elements of a sense of compromise or promising Biden formulated a carbon tax without carbon price. The US and EU visions cannot be easily reconciled. There are pathways that blend both. The Bible path is coming club system club trade freely, but here for those not in the club. Each country uses its own approach to drive the tariff, which allow the EU to stay faithful to the US can use different methods by pursuing compromise. Like-minded countries could powerful coalition for both sides of ample reason to find common ground. That restrains Russia and Ukraine. JLT 1020. The EU's increase in purchase of Russian energy is finding its assault on Ukraine. The result is an unbound Putin political geopolitical shift for adversaries. 50% of its budget has been oil and gas export. Russia growth is above 4%. Embargoes are sanctioned theater to Russia's LNG purchase increase of 20% of the EU money kept the Kremlin flush. Russia managed to rebuild its military essentially to restrain Russia to isolate from energy markets. Otherwise, nuclear war. Bergeron 24. Russia possesses the world's largest arsenal, including battlefield nukes, to change its nuclear doctrine, spends for nuclear weapons to increase by more likely when Hiroshima and Nagasaki terminate the war quickly, saving costly invasion that allowed the US to impose unconditional surrender incentives for Russia to be dissimilar. Russia steadily pushing against Ukrainian resistance was far more likely instead of rooting Russian troops with victory and slightly attempting to launch international political costs working to could be mitigated by winning Russia. Plan. The United States federal government should apply an emissions and performance border carbon adjustment to imported goods. The plan solves Fishman et al. 24. The EPCPA shall apply to imports only. All domestic producers benefit proposals focus on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. EPCPA needs to account for amended upstream emissions life cycle analysis by LCA includes upstream emissions possible to minimize upstream leakage as well as indirect emissions such as land use including downstream emissions would be imperfect will jeopardize the broader policy emissions that are provides a target. The standard can reflect average of good or sector lockers or punishment if expected average test the automatically update. These can create continuous incentives to safeguards need to ensure a country cannot use to export lowest emissions products. This research helping allow producers to reduce exposure fees without lowering emissions. The EPCPA could apply based on individual firms. This creates stronger level from level incentives to recognize instead of we maintain for fiscal disaster in the countries. Territory different for different sectors can be tailored to mitigation opportunity. $20 DJ in critical minerals and plastics. $10 based on PFA rate is based on gold station production domestic or clean foreign producers. The proposals target trade into exposed emissions and intensive sectors. Some explicit target sectors where the U.S. lost production capacity where the lack of diversity creates vulnerabilities focus on industrial goods complexity but adjustment and finished goods being more promote proposals. Envision phase and a mechanism for allowing producers to add goods to provide counterweights and stability of products for which the U.S. currently has not existed capacity of BCA could affect national security phase approach managed. This another option is exemptions. It's easy to administer work 21 to charge importers high quality goods already available companies reporting emissions as growth 3 and the fold and cap covers how the market goal and market capital companies start emissions to be sustainable and respond to the trade partners and climate policy mean consumer demand for lower carbon goods for which is already available and verifiable. Account for 80% of U.S. trade carbon has experience in carbon accounting expense and price has BCA expense to aspects that are readily available practice are well, such IPCC have published guidelines from international companies that considerably important petition for lower value have to disclose companies trade the same for disclosure of the carrier can and for lower adjustment of existing fuel excise tax to provide a proven model for the BCA CPP imposes tariffs and schedules precise border as no more complexity disclosure importers already engaged in at the border. The ICA conducts investigation and due diligence. The Justice Department pursue penalties. Trump would not circumvent Den Mill and range 1021. Neither administration champion domestic commerce and President import Trump would support that policy because tariffs have been a straight tool of choice to public domestic industries. Revenue will be perceived as another way for Trump to offset losses from tax cuts. Federal action is key. Farber 08 and seeking cooperation with the EU, California, and Canada constitutional barriers are subject to explicit constitutional restrictions. Therefore, export laws residency shall be laid on imports and supplies to international trade. The plan creates political support for decarbonization. Tucker and Meyer 22 conversations brings the political support for decarbonization created instead for jobs moving to 11 countries finding goals. It should go jobs to reach that benefit from liberalization. This is critical support to political support across offsetting costs of the economy. Investor costs for policy does not penalize countries economically for decarbonization. Mark that decarbonization. That's the third to last one.
We'll take prep.
Wait, sorry, what card was that and where?
The third to last decarbonization or for decarbonization.
Okay. Prep. good for cross-ex?
Yeah.
Okay. Who does the plan?
The United States federal government.
Normal means implementation would be.
It could be, there are two ways that tariffs get implemented. One could be Section 232 authority by the executive, the other could be a law. Those are like the two that I know of.
Okay, and it fiats only a border carbon adjustment tax.
Yeah, and only an emissions performance border carbon adjustment.
Okay, what does the price start at?
The plan, or we haven't specified a price, the Fishman evidence says that the price would be different for various sectors and would be tailored to the goals necessary to convert a sector from from dirty to clean. So it's like not as a particular price. I guess it gives an example of like $20 may be needed in critical minerals. For plastics, $10 might suffice, but it's all based on
who
whether
determines, who calculates the price per sector, like for a sector, if it can be different for sectors?
Well, again, we haven't like fiated a particular agency, but the
What?
Fishman evidence says that FPFA right now is the one that sets rates based on goals for trade exposed emissions. For foreign sectors, so that could be a possible way that the rate would be
Okay.
cross-applied, but there's not really.
To be clear, the FPFA is the Foreign Pollution Fee Act. We think that
Yeah,
that
that's not an
that sets different guidelines, which is like one piece of legislation the plan could be modeled off of, and then it would be enforced at the border probably by Customs and Border Patrol.
Okay, can it be adjusted
Yes.
up and down?
Not. How would it be adjusted down?
Like if the tax, like if people want to like import more goods, we could lower the price so that they could import goods that are highly emitted. Could it be adjusted down?
I don't think that any of our evidence speaks to that either way.
Oh, okay.
The way that it's calculated is like it subtracts the difference between domestic emissions intensities of U.S. sectors, and then it takes that and like what's the difference between the U.S. firms' emissions intensity and foreign sectors' emissions intensity. So it is like the amount of emissions calculated is based on the difference between the two.
Okay, the trade advantage. Have you read evidence that suggests the plan is WTO compliant?
The plan, well, the Sutton evidence says that it is necessary to change the nature of trade rules in order to make trade more solution oriented. It says that there is backlash to just free trade right now because governments are deprioritizing domestic economies. So the plan solves protectionism and trade backlash now because it means that
So is that a
mission-oriented trade
yes or a no?
What, like, well,
The 1AC is
yeah, it doesn't like
the 2AC will.
yeah.
The 2AC, okay. Okay. Warming advantage. How do you solve leakage?
With the plan.
Yeah, like the border.
Okay, how? Like, what does the plan do to solve leakage?
The border adjustment applies to foreign goods.
Okay. Yep.
I'm good if you're good, right?
Well, I just want to take a look. 906.
Oh, I gotta change the text.
Okay.
Come on.
That's why they looked.
I would have figured it out. Okay. 831. I am sending it. There's 10 in there, but like probably 8. But like get 10 sheets of paper. And then
I'm obsessed with you.
and then warming trade. I don't know, like I warmed up, I was like kinda speedy this morning, but like I'm really like I don't know. We'll see what happens. You're along the ride with me.
Hold on.
In case.
Yeah, warming trade, which is the one I see first. Plugged in, I see you. All three of you? Dartmouth? Lovely. Harris is winning Matthew, he had 23 better strategies, cover believes Harris will be victorious. The purple Lucy sees of Chelsea to 18, 20, 22. Trump is not learned to assemble a broad coalition. Harris coalition encompasses AOC, course, 20, and consider this is a record election, bigger coalition, South Light, South Trump, Harris is funding advantage around swing state voters, even recent protection of voters as an organized carbon pricing 50 election Raven, 18% of tax base for social backlash elections, often clips into carbon pricing, certainly political pain, future press on gas, one of the natural gas Americans, particularly where prices represent of political pain, any tax grab is tax or capping energy prices, backlash from side idea, Mr. Reduction, first scope is possible, increase position, more sensitive political position, cost on products, 24 states, top number, producing includes Texas, California, Pennsylvania, Illinois, Colorado, Trump re-election caused extinction, Dresser, in 24 Trump sees every paper cost from across the board, the tariff tax spike in inflation, immigration restriction, damage growth, and the price of inflation, rate 22 to the table, not trade Ukraine loses the war with Russia, neighbors abandoning Ukraine, South Berkeley, line circuit, back, while people say down, pursue heading any term, reassuring by the access of personnel, quad realization, allies, and weakening economies more close to Latin American countries, use of Chinese influence, incentivized military, and action to other response, South Korea, Japan, to all people to turn to lead to prevent wars, the war, over around Saudi, Turkey, UAE, nuclear coalition, challenge, the economy suffer long term, and growth slowdowns, realistically, will lead to more stable, greater possibility of war, the Indo-Pacific, will use terms in the next office spec, the affirmative must specify the rate, base, and trade compliance, and where the revenue goes, this MECAP, and neither is a little change to the times, the CCT, narrow, badly designed for OCT, is called the Roman National Active Model, consider transfer design to the tax rate, including use of revenues as tax base and trade concerns. Vote negative tax design is a central question of the resolution. Gita, negatively counterpart competition and education independently, like a spec where it's solvency, Calder, nifty tax exchange before complex is important by policy clearly exceeded such a down emissions. Later objectives tax on mobile emissions are consumption rate to meet that objective. The next stop is the counterpart. The 50 states should inform the White House to state cooperation with federal initiatives be contingent upon the United States federal government applying emissions performance border carbon adjustment to imported goods. The counterpart generates sufficient momentum towards the BTA Bloomberg. In 20 government working force of our government engagements is state accommodating for policy changes 7-4 is ongoing. Next off is he MBI must incentivize voluntary action in markets, not unilaterally define a price signal. Excludes BTA's Wolfen. 20% defines the limit policy. Instruments on markets based on unilaterally defines price signal. Prices not voluntary. Include taxes and charges. MBI modify the relative price through the interplay supply and demand system. Voluntary change. Voting give an issue for limiting or outlining the acting of regulatory standards. Estimate unique links to counter competition for command and control compliance. It's possible for noting not specifying the agent of the plan or cross links. It's voting issue because it's used like makes it possible for us to generate conflict competition. Next off is that it said the European Union should not adopt a carbon border adjustment mechanism. The plan will be coupled with border adjustments. Well, they planned fiat, a border adjustment that is viewed as protectionist and collapses the world trade system that's not power. In 21, you said Europe and China are allowed to responsible for the environmental needs, action, trading system, regulations, definitely make converters, goods, except these escalation protections, action, automatic restriction, system, border adjustments, controversial partners, discount protection, quality, WTO proposals, program competition, control, obstacle, cooperative action, reduce, emissions, use schemes, property, opponents, second, civil reduction, China, police oppositions, their compatibility, W, vigorous, capacity, use, bills, organic, training, parts, such as them, but adjustment violations, the GHG mandates, access, not those and domestic products, conflict, border measures, formula for the serious trade friction. The next office, the disad full NDAA passes now by part. Is Keeler, the 24 NDAA passes by the House by differences in SEC's versions of funding of the top line forcing out the Senate negotiation, compromise bill, national pass and lane dog Biden. The Senate support Johnson versus here, the UD, the warning of veterans by Sear would have an ability to modernize the real Sears, limited indicating capacity can be with the PRC implications on everywhere. Outline 42 billion reduction now was by January first call for Congress to uphold the bipartisan tradition to defense prior to new president. Climate policy and partisan reforms got shelled from the lame duck in order to help the NDAA pass. That's become the 24 defense policy, including energy and environmental purposes, will obey most significant priorities. House version loaded with national climate policy, Senate was the last one for the environment priorities. The full term is running out. Senate propagation includes programs for both sides, left hand environmental, but includes after the election. The alternative isn't no defense bill, but a zero top stopgap that kills modernization and munition stocks, causes China, Russia, and Middle East war. Bipartisan key Daniels and Harrison. The 24 one creature combination for suicide, pushing national security, medical wins. The best option is December definitely pass appropriations required by putting it to the threats of defense reduction for includes that ceiling taxes and net budget military restraining for zero naval harmonization and the U.S. defense China, Russia, Middle East, Ukraine, ceiling it into force on trading force have to take extraordinary measures separate. Means across the board couple of communities and modernization needed China, Russian critical points, I'm sure to consider messages. Sequestration happened by probably needed. Adversary probing and a slew of hotspots make a trade-off for modernization, extinction, greed, and the nation must modernize its nuclear forces. Action to the U.S. are credible to deterrent U.S. will face nuclear arsenals, war risks, conflict, secrecy, national challenge. U.S. is over realistic decisions how the must change you. Every single Russia, China, Russia, risk of conflict, power scares. But as a pretty good war, the next stop is the advantage counterplan of the United States to substantially increase its funding for the research and development of geoengineering. Geoengineering solves warming better than the AFF emission reductions. No loan failed. The 10 and 22 geoengineering obstacle global temperatures and introducing particle system away to the atmosphere to reflections on race, scientific confidence. Colder with the mass governments in the private sector many to monitoring the research and spreading of emission all over the world whoever crises. U.S. is only got 30% of annual emission reduction easily determined by exchange for the rest of the world gases. Having committed continuing weather is making the world so bad for national tech methods. No longer time to rescue the world. The next stop is a counterplan. The United States federal government should enter into negotiations with large emitters over an international carbon price floor that allows differentiation, including price equivalent non-pricing policies according to the development, and creates a fiscal transfer system to compensate developing member countries. The United States should comply with the agreement and implement it should agreement be reached. The international carbon pricing floor or ICPF solves. Other countries say yes, and it solves emissions better than a tax and BTA approach that wrecks consensus and causes retaliation. Dervison 21 ICPF to reduce pressure for BS that first apologies to be large emitters. The US, Canada, the UK, China, the EU, achieve 20 to run Russian global emissions, water measure, useful trigger sign injection, could continue global according to high mass approach. With a chance again, you don't want to CPF face no WTO related barriers because it's not involved trade president during the global voluntary voluntary agreement requiring companies to set national divisions of risk countries in the same rescue useful leverage helping move other financially more effective decisions they have assist and achieve goals. The next stop is the K, the one he sees market-based solution. To climate change contributes to a broader global crisis of humanism that turns global south into racialized disaster zones that makes land grab, structural inequality, and warming itself inevitable. The alternative is eco-socialist decarbonization. Period. In 20, the climate requires new politics for racial capture, understanding ecological vision beyond persistent analysis, empirical forecasts, scientific reports and data, impacts of worker loadings, dispossession, changes on ecological systems, represent structural language, representing immediate disaster zones, global south face the round of deadly weather events, and evaluation of emergency failure, organisms, diagnosis, and solution cause, just transition, replicated global division, division of labor, empty aspect, idea of workers, illegal winners, and neither, and the role shifting, the thing, responsibility for video consultants, necessity, necessary, solidarity, mobilizations are necessary, remapping power required, reaching, which is structural building, crisis, mobilization, job, skill, action, form, appreciation of land, nature, social organization, transit borders, improve imagination, to operate beyond green path. The next stop is the counterplan. The United States federal government should apply an emissions, non-performance, carbon border adjustment to imported goods, only tax for carbonization solves, greening their impacts over cities, Section 22, effects of GHG, reductions, no evidence of universal assumptions are negative parameters to be because GHG, water, greening, ag, part, results in never water, efficiency, average effects, complicated by natural health, and factory, job, economic, scale changes, systematic effects, more difficult commoners believe the dire predictions, and media general models assumption from universally accepted, mark that, accepted the case. Leakage is inevitable even with the BTA. That's Morris. Many team members, including BTA and the lobes of already leakage. Leakage also come from economic forces. The BTA can provide prices. Leakage and inflation in fact the demand for fossil fuel prices. Also, with lower global prices, increasing with some foreign countries that are not control emission. While BTA is also lower competition for leakage. There's also have no effect on leakage from the rate of prices. BTA prevents modeling. That's cost paid all the 1960s discrimination effectiveness. BTA and enforcing compliance limited exporting to represent a fraction of the economy goals. Cost of exports is allocated away. Cost of carbon pricing target country refer to retaliating against BTA. Using BTA to go to measurable on nothing. Conflict with BTA is divisive interest. And here is economic quality, particularly its leverage. Competitiveness is locked in. Economists in turn the ratio measures American dominance remains striking. American papers is failure to go GDP represent prime papers and world showing more astonishing ability to hold its place over peers making some performance to translate to wealth. Income reversal was higher than in Europe. America's gain over productive problems not alleged to the Europe's past performance to predict the future, but its current performance is going to long to bear close to the jewels in the long term test of workforce and productivity higher fertility rate, more efficiency, demographic advantage, working population increases 30% per Europe, Germany 9%, and workforce is more productive, productivity 67%, increases efficiency, adoption, cost of increase. America's more productive info and contact. American workers are highly skilled, 34%. They have complete tertiary education. Singapore has a higher rate of economy, so highly educated workforce. R&D is useful token of future growth as no reason ahead of other countries. Geological riches as expanding the economy, diversifying, adding new resilience, competitiveness is fake. That's true. So in 22 economies abuse the concept of competitiveness and not the strong concentrating economics and no fundamentals. And go to economic theory. The analogy between business territory is meaningless. Accommodation where countries cannot just expression less competitive ones like that. Competitive loss no impact to warming, bucknumbing. 23 separate emissions, 90% are found close. 0.5% of papers advance warming close prices. Manufacturers, scientists, government catastrophic climate change. Given take 10 public sector use hardly a catastrophe. Eco's climate produces evidence of risk protection based on models, not trends. There's no climate insurance of weather. That's a decline 99%. CO2 renewable oil plants will reduce not for an annual crisis, still including concepts for impact hills. The presence of a percent oceans remaining alkaline, and studies show marine life adaptation. There is no mass extinction. Scientists and study of cannot be dismissed. And as deniers, the trade advantage US-EU co-op is still linked. That's been said. In 23, the US and EU is working to raise the seal. We'll also see property on the goal in the TCC. Well, renewable translating global urban number new efficient use between domestic content requirements. The IRA face the environment fears factors new currencies. You'll take TCC no trade impact. Bits at all in 21 year prevents not to use interstate trade. Empirical structure they cannot rely solely on trade or real structure trade. They will have an impact trade. The study uses 3 dyes and Saudi, Yemen countries, domestic expenses, it's resilient, Lawrence, actually not that covered, no supply chain impact, well, in 21 disruption, economy, pandemic charges, black and trace, was going to the range of global supply chain, doing fragile, was good, and then cross supply chains leave companies vulnerable, global economy, showing crash, automakers, and production, home builders, showing acquire lumber, the second wave of COVID, and India, global vaccine supply, semiconductor, Russian, concentrated in Taiwan, rising, U.S. China, to the United States, climate, versus kind of, because of attack of 1,500 organizations, you have interrupted global food supply chain, and another disrupted U.S. gas global supply chain, allow isolated stocks to go, no, Ukraine, Russia war, they would never use nukes under, the problem discussion preservation media get by solution nuclear war the problem motive Russia propagandists exploit Putin's backing as a wall hypothesis and misrepresent martial methods of behavior after the BC has no nuclear wars is not political power so then Putin will be the third in Moscow and Ukraine using news well and happening nuclear talk is very different but deploying weapons as an alternative Russian leadership knows everyone else to send weapons to Ukraine would have far to go Moscow will support leadership of criminals and to riots fast a multi-probably compromise military response of others tremendous but the Russian states no impact the victory is unlikely and geopolitically significant because the global balance power wouldn't shift.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Okay. On Advantage 1, did you read the BTA points modeling part?
The BTA, yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah. Go for it.
This greening counterplan, what is the do both answer? Or like, actually my initial question is what does it do?
It's the opposite of the plan. It's essentially like an impact turn to the notion. We think that by not greening the environment, it will self-correct, which is a better method than employing a BTA.
By not greening the environment?
Yeah, the counterplan is emissions non-performance carbon adjustment. You cannot do both because the counterplan is literally the opposite of the plan. It is like the definition of mutual exclusive. Like this is even more mutually exclusive than the bank counterplan.
So you tax clean products on it more.
Yeah.
Okay, and then the impact is what?
The impact is that it's an internal link turn to the warming advantage.
Okay, the status is condo.
Yeah, you read it anyway.
The
We think that
T
that is justified because you didn't let us
interpretation,
pro.
what do you think is the reason why carbon tax would be topical but a BTA isn't?
No, Wolf also excludes taxes.
Oh, okay. So what are examples of topical apps?
It's pretty clear in the table. It says that the market-based instruments would include direct markets. So, for example, it says e.g. ecotourism, sustainable timber, genetic resources, and then it also says tradable certificates, so green and white certificates.
So it says
which
like
are
MBIs
things.
modify relative prices through an interplay of supply and demand. Why do BTAs not modify?
Yes,
relative
and then it
prices?
says non-market-based instruments include taxes and charges. The reason is because
include taxes and charges. That doesn't mean like all taxes and charges are non.
what? It says non-MBIs, taxes and charges.
Yes,
you
they
are a tax. That is
include
not an
taxes.
MBI.
Okay,
Well,
so
it's fine.
okay, whatever. The NEA just add what is the reason that the people who would support a full NDAA would want that right now?
The reason is because Climate agreed before leaving session, like a couple weeks ago, that they were not going to have green discussions during the lame duck period because they wanted to
No,
all
like,
agree.
Why would they vote for the
Yes,
thing?
like what's the reason that they want the NDAA?
Because they want to fund the government.
They want to fund the government.
Indeed.
Okay, so then
The card also has other warrants. It indicates that they agreed on like getting rid of controversial amendments so that they could pass the bill. Biden said he would support it, and the DoD asked him to.
okay, so they agreed
know that
on
he's
getting
going to.
rid of controversial amendments.
Yeah, the plan is another controversial amendment.
Okay, no, wait. So you're saying the plan is an amendment? to the
Well, no,
NDAA?
we don't have to win that the plan rides the NDAA, but it's certainly reintroducing climate after all of Congress pinky promised to not talk about climate during the lame duck. It is like the definition of what they all agreed they wouldn't do. You come back into
Okay,
the lame
and
duck,
you're
like
like-
November 7th, boom, we're doing this again.
Your
Like, no
evidence
wonder
is-
they'd be pissed off.
Okay, your evidence is like people want this because they want to fund the military. Where do you have evidence that climate is what overcomes
Like,
that?
really, truly, the pecan card might be the best link card for this that I've read. It says that they've all agreed. The House version was loaded, quote, loaded with attacks on climate policies.
Like-
then, with support from both sides, they, quote, left out major environmental bills so
Okay,
that they could
that's
get this
fine.
bill through.
Okay.
Like, Will didn't put this in
the-
size 29 for no reason.
Is the net benefit to ICPF just the trade disadvantage?
No, it's politics as well.
Okay. Are you gonna take it?
Yeah.
Okay, you read trade defense. Is there a difference between that and the impact to your trade disadvantage?
No, but if you want to get rid of your whole advantage, like, I'll take that. We can also read impact add-ons.
You didn't read the impact to the screening thing, right?
I didn't read the what?
The impact card to the screening thing?
I can't hear you.
No.
The impact card to the greening
No.
covenant plan.
Because it's an internal link to the one. So I don't need to link that. What the fuck?
I'm kidding.
Oh, I told you. No, they didn't. But this is.
Okay.
8:26. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Let me see if I this have it.
Wait, sorry. Someone said 8:26?
Well, I said 8:27.
Oh,
and then
sure,
Buckman
yeah,
said
yeah, no,
8:27.
you did that
Yeah,
second.
yeah.
No. You earned that second. Like, yeah, you did.
Thanks, Jonathan.
Let's see. Anything fun?
Well, the block is going to be, the 2 and C is going to just turn both advantages and the 1.5 penalty.
Nice.
So
McCaff will like that.
there's some shiny objects that
Sure,
are
sure.
quickly going to become irrelevant.
Ooh, shiny object.
Consult the natives.
Thanks.
Yeah.
About
but
what?
About
you-
transmission
I mean,
rates.
Yeah.
you don't care what they think?
Pretty
That's-
messed up if you ask me.
They probably for sure say no.
That is
That's
what
why we gotta ask
That's
them.
our argument.
Oh, called 2ACM as you real. I wonder what was in the fake.
Oh, that's an excellent question. Yeah, actually, it's a good point. I always do that, but there's no whatever. Anyway. Okay, 2ACM as you real. We'll proceed in the order of advantage 1, advantage 2.
Warming trade.
Yeah.
Okay.
Spec. Market-based instrument. I forgot what this acronym stands for already, but the ICPF counterplan, the like multilateral one.
Yeah.
Greening. Pressure. Geoengineering. Capitalism. Trade. Election. NDAA.
Wait. Okay. The Juseds are trade, election, NDAA.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Okay, cool.
What was greening after?
It is the first it's the multilateral counterplan, then greening, then pressure. Okay, are we good? One and two, one is leakage is inevitable. That is wrong. This court is about a carbon tax. Our argument is that the plan prevents leakage from the IRA and EPA regulations, which are evidence substantiates. One and C2 is BT prevents modeling. Not our argument, rather it is that first decarbonized 2 are the avoid having to pay the tax. One and C3 competitiveness not locked in. The decline of U.S. manufacturing, steel, aluminum, etc. all produce a crisis for competitiveness, and our evidence says that it is on the brink because of charitable sort of doing incursions in places like the Pacific and Russia, Ukraine means that the sort of brink is now for us competitiveness. One and C4's competitiveness is fake. Our productivity and innovation are positive. Some is our argument. It is that we need to be sort of competitive against other countries internationally. And the kind of U.S. manufacturing is the thing that is causing that to collapse in the status quo. Warming is existential. Our evidence says against this scientists. Their evidence says that there will be no hothouse Earth, but that is not our argument. Is that it causes system collapse and disruption, and then 8 degrees Celsius. Warming is like because of feedback loops and tipping points, which causes systemic collapse. Trade. 1 and C1 EU, US cooperation, not our argument. 1 and C2 is no trade impact, it is wrong. 1 interdependence facilities, peace between countries. 2 is broadly revitalizing international trade ordinance, and international trade system is necessary for cooperation over all problems like poverty, pandemics, and disease, which our evidence substantiates and deciding PhDs. 1 and C3 is yes, supply chains and market evidence says that historically caused World War 1 and 2, and it causes ripples throughout the economy. Pandemic shocks are our unique argument demonstrates the need for on and re-enfrenching the Russia-Ukraine defense. Russia would use a nuclear evidence is answering this scenario where they're losing. Our evidence says that it is more likely that they use a nuke to end the war quickly when they are winning, and it is also from it is also a year-old Russian victory in Ukraine is likely there. This evidence is also a year-old. It is from Stephen Brooks, who doesn't know anything because he's just a random professor at Dartmouth, and our evidence accounts for the updated sort of field conditions about what is happening in Ukraine and says that it is quote more likely than Ukraine routing Russian troops. That. 1 counter-interpretation affirmative should be topical. Anything else is definitely recipes that they can always go for the affirmative was imperfect, which makes affirmative fairness possible. 2 is self advocates track. 3 picks become unbeatable if penniless picks become unbeatable. 4 all Negron links 2 any affirmative because all of them say that taxation is bad. MBI. 1 MBI includes taxes and market creation. Number 11 by MBI is known as the absence of a clear definition of market should be referred to for specific reasons other than just substitute for monetary MBIs. C2 is the market value for environmental action, not by incorporating the external cost of taxes or charges or creating property rights and net property market. 2 no ground laws requires the absence to be big. The habit rate next still applies, and their interpretation totally reshifts the topic, which refers to the next report. 4 over limiting excluding, or 3 over limiting excluding carbon taxes and insane is a core controversy. Key half innovation, 4 folks to limit seats, econ, and K markets. 5 arbitrariness. Their evidence says creation of a market is 1. Their evidence just list off examples. Arbitrary in terms cost over substance, which are concept clash. No ace spec was one of the other ways Asian counterplays are because they steal the F and divorce the B from substance. The IPCF counterplay 1 do both. This solves driving the US proposal. Look binding 2 multilateral approach fails, but the plan solves the alternative benefit bigger than third and all 20. Climate change will always acting concert 20 years of considered efforts to prevent prudence money should do a greater diplomatic challenge of convincing leading economies. Kyoto was unsuccessful. Paris like the force of the US should use the dominant position of Brazilian countries to do their share of carbon. Encourage trading partners to know the carbon alliance of the US led the Argentina to join rather than resist. Only US led alliance can also the economic leverage will compel major economies to the counterplay committee of certainty is illegitimate because not obvious of us after since it doesn't disprove should for to the counterplay then the plan is not intrinsic enough to the delay of the counterplay which solves it makes our proposal conditional initially 5 international emitters obviously say no because the plan would impose a price on them if the counterplay does not impose a price on them. Our evidence says that the sort of pricing is key to a constant driving constant marginal abatement, which is fishman in the 1AC6. The backlash link will be answered on the trade side. Grading. 1, do both. It cancels out the effect of the plan. 2, do the count of plan. 3, it links to all of the net benefits. And 4, it cancels all the sort of existing decarbonization policies in the U.S. like the EPA and the IRA, which means that it's trying to solve the trade advantage 5 cost for carbon intensity are key to drive global decarbonization. That's page 1. The impact card says emissions are a key, and their person is an idiot. 6, this is on page 2. 5, 7, it is sneaky. Action warming reduces food production by 16 grams per negative warmer temperatures from 81 to 02 warmer reduce the production of wheat corn and barley by 40 million metric tons per year. Negative impacts are already occurring if temperatures increase. Fertilization is affected or reducing the plant's growing season and yield and labs yields do increase both real life field conditions. While yields are currently cut by 75%, the positive effects of carbon dioxide may be negated by the shock caused by low rainfall and higher time increased cloud cover. Living photosynthesis and higher levels of carbon dioxide helps some plants but not compensate for reduced phosphorus or potassium insects will extend the range farmers can expect a 100% increase in crop losses. Pressure counterplan. 1, do the counter plan, then the plan. 2, do both. It looks like the Fed following on, so it doesn't. Let's know what the net benefit. 3, do the counter plan. 4, it links to net benefit because it looks like a federal action. 5, the Fed says no preemption would be the response, not follow on. 6, it doesn't follow through on the threat, so it would be toothless, and the Fed would call their bluff. 7, otherwise it causes a civil war, which is insane. It makes decarbonization look uncertain and classes our impacts about competitiveness and successful diplomacy. 8, conditionality is voting issue for 2AC choice. 2AC never the best counter plan answers because they create no cost for the NEG. It can only hurt the half on other pages that disincentivizes in-depth counter plan research, clash on both sides, choice education, dispo ensures 2AC choice. You can kick what we perm geoengineering. 1, do both. 2, links to all the benefits. 3, doesn't solve the trade advantage. 4, it's snake oil. You cannot be certain that any individual solution will solve all of climate change. 5, geoengineering fails at its worst. I'll show you this geofianza. 20, growth of land tech and NEG are both require planetary elevation and above futurists without a blue planet will lead to conflict, launching humanity into chaos. BCCS is not understood, much less test only handful of small facilities. Is not only by food, water, biody, market, biody. Cap K1 on the link should be unique and calls to the planet is key to fairness, which is the basis of the game. Anything else unpredictable. 2, do both frame the affirmative through the alternative. 3, capitalism is good. That's trade advantage. 4, market mechanisms facilitate decoupling all degrowth and litters at all. 22, cutting emissions while down to growth and degrowth and decoupling degrowth proposals are as uncertain is green tower growth tech breakthroughs and scribble over sort of both fits are like cycle we needed to reduce emissions for societies while to less efficient tech offsetting savings instead of escape stars all are winning the cost of achieved absolute decoupling even counting countries emissions about a massive investment we need to do. It's difficult to see how our economy self-trying sometimes solar can generate this alongside education through adaptation. The private sector will have to mobilize on running finishes ability. All this sounds like a way to make that happen. 6, the alternative causes leakage to other countries or it is international fiat and utopian fiat which is unfair to the affirmative because we can never generate deficits. Straight. 1, trade unsustainable global financial crisis. COVID in Ukraine produced backlash to globalization, drove countries toward national independence. That's Octas. 2, domestic collapse of trade. Support for liberal trade is inevitable. It is proven by the Biden and Trump presidencies. So the only question is what replaces it. 3, only the plan rescues trade in the long term developing a trade model that supports domestic policy priorities like climate instead of undercutting them. Rebuild support. That's Octas. And work for no protectionist final countries except the plans so they can retain access to the U.S. market. That's work. 5, no. Internal link one-off protectionist policies are high now and don't produce total deglobalization, which is necessary for their impact. 6, narrow trade systems don't cost their impact project. 23, during Bretton Woods governments prioritize domestic economies of global integration despite the total economy Bretton Woods were to prove conducive to a significant economic and social progress. Bretton Woods should give pause to those who believe that permanent countries only way pursue policies detrimental. Elections. 1, decide starts at 50 and the election is unflippable. No October surprise. Bureau 1022. There's nothing anyone can do. 6 months watching to witness World War the Middle East. How the assassination attempts in New Canada and the race change remarkably little. No one is worried about the October surprise. We've had several which have had no impact to today's environment. The independent Islamic now malleable. Swing voters are a myth. We know however one will vote. All is bull. Show us physical tide. There's no hope to change the dynamic. Persuasion is passe, but are irrelevant. 2, the plan builds political support. That's Meyer that avoids tax leaks. It gives tells an effective message on climate change. Fire 22. Biden raised tariffs on solar panels and motors. China is sick of using back up for 30 years. Climate advocates trying to raise the cost of fossil fuels in America by compromise. Advocates never succeeded. The biggest obstacle to climate policy is the lack of a domestic coalition that supports decarbonization. The central climate neutral policy should be a create an enduring coalition. This is guided by its policy of powerful global coalition. This is the IRA and tariffs Biden rolled. 16 of the U.S. makes headway on emissions, but imports all tech from China. The U.S. has developed its own supply chain and manufacturing ability coalition. Trade restrictions that become started with the Yaman emphasis jobs. Labor share is falling down. It may not matter. Companies support policy when doing so. Hopes fiscal investments. Factories not legal. Labor 3. Backlash to globalization makes huge jumps inevitable. So it's charted out. That's Contra Flower. No tax like the plan is a 180. From making fossil fuels expensive, that's Meyer on the card that I just read. 5, Biden tariffs on both tariff and climate talk links, which is also the card I just read. 6, Trump can't commit to the plan because he likes tariffs. That's an ABL 7. There's only a benefit for Kamala saying she has a more tailored trade approach. Rich 24 trade chief was USMC on environmental issues. She got to decide Trump's tariffs are foreign good tax may go to more expensive since Biden maintained Chinese tariffs. We will distinguish Trump's position in the next couple of announced approach. Trump's out across the board. Tariff will be an easy target. 7, Trump will steal the election. It will come down to lawsuits either way. 8, the plan happens after the election because Congress is out of session. P out as minimal means that it ensures that it gets politics but avoids the emergency session. Decide 10, Trump can't roll back the case because he likes tariffs and he won back rollback regulations because that forfeits American carbon advantage. 11, no impact restraints and it is done by the first term NDAA. 1, no link their evidence is about writing the NDAA but proves it will pass on its own inside. 1 and C, Pukun and all 20 or 920. Agent amendments package for the last overall race, one of their environmental priorities, stage around the last bill, which is also do for the best that could still pass on their own, labor leaders left on environmental bills, all workers were England had the NDAA, 2 trade bills passed for their own, or in the next Congress were 24 trade bills in 2025 for analysts like all prospects look legal, or makers look like a delay, let incoming pursue a preferred policy market, preferred policy 3, turn plan ready, the defense bill solves that this had fiat means it passes if it's attached, it can't be a CR since the inclusion of the plan is a big change in funding baselines 4, no link, the plan is popular, unlike all other climate policy, that's it protects domestic industry, that's Tucker and Meyer, and it's bipartisan silent, 24 climate has become partisan, their resistance change about probably robust bipartisan coalition raising for border tariffs, Republicans actually level the playing field in the face of environmental restrictions on American manufacturers, Republican casting reach on China's energy base, right on, brother, Manchin responded, brother, represent fossil fuel producers, no one's climate talks, out of climate talks, and this looks possible, 5 normal means is what's easy, it solves the link, either it's popular, so no backlash, or executive, so not linked to NDA, 6 not intrinsic, pass the plan until the NDA preserves opportunity cost logic, reciprocal to counter plan 7, will pass bad faith, capture an election by Schweitzer, and also 23, the NDA both sides wanted to nuclear the access with the Edos, but the Edos don't always go, there are other people who think of the nation being a nation of chaos, etc. There's a debate about the election results. Members have the Jews focus our interest in governing our throughout the fireworks house, but be refusing to do its job. That last part is more to refusing to do its job.
Yep. Ooh, that's 30 minutes. Okay. Are you good?
Yeah.
Okay. I want to start on the trade dissent.
Yeah.
The narrower trade systems.
Yeah.
2 questions. Why does it answer the dissent, and why does it not answer the F?
Because Danny Roderick isn't that person. He doesn't think that liberalized hyper-globalization is good. He thinks that a trade system that is sort of tailored toward resolving specific issues is desirable. But it answers your sort of arguments about the statistical correlation between trade and peace, because it says that in the 20th century, the Bretton Woods system had lower trade, but it had cooperation, and that was sufficient to sort of enable human prosperity. We have made an argument that restructuring the trade system in the 21st century is important to cause that cooperation.
Okay, Stephen asked you in 1AC Crossix if you read a card that the plan is W2 compliant. You said you'd give me one in the 2AC. I don't believe you have, is that correct?
I don't think that the 1NC card has an impact about being WTO compliant.
But you've never made the claim that the affirmative is compliant with any WTO rule until the end of the 2AC in this debate.
It's like,
correct? If so, I'm gonna ask for a line. You know that's coming, so just like pull up the 1AC, give me the line. Except Nora didn't when Stephen asked.
Yeah, it's like, I don't think that this 1NC card says anything
Okay.
about it. It's like,
Yeah, well,
this card says that it would violate
I asked for a
WTO
card
rules.
line
It does
from
not say
your
that
card,
that
not my
like,
card.
matters.
I know my card, but okay. I want to talk about NDA to said. You've read a card that the trade bill will pass on its own, and then you've also said that it will pass, that the NDA will ride the plan, which is it? Those seem like 2 entirely different interpretations of normal means fiat.
Yeah, you can pick. If you think that the
I can
plan
pick.
rides the NDAA, then we think that that turns the disad.
Okay,
If you
you've
think
also
the plan
provided-
passes on its own, we think that the normal means for that would be after the link.
Okay, you've also provided another normal means interpretation of the plan on elections, which is the F happens after. So can you just clarify, who do you think does the F, what rides it, when does it happen? You also said the plan could be executive, I think, somewhere in there. So like, just
I don't think,
let me
I
know
think
what's
I said
going
that
on.
in 1AC Cross-X, not in the 2AC. We think that our interpretation of fiat is that it is minimal means. So it is the minimally disruptive way that the plan could be done. So that means that it would not reconvene an emergency session of Congress, which was our argument on elections, and it would not happen before the #1 priority, which is the NDAA, because we have read normal means evidence that trade policy bills will happen after the lame duck.
Okay, that's fair. I want to talk about the case, the trade impact. Why is it, you've said that Russia will use a nuke to end the war quickly.
Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but this war started when I was a senior in high school. Like what quickly ended?
Well, sorry, not quickly, but like if they are advancing and they look like they're winning, our evidence analogizes it to the reason that the U.S. used nukes on Japan, which was we looked like we were winning and we wanted to exact the most favorable settlement possible.
Okay, and what would
end
make
the
Russia
war.
think that they're winning?
The fact that like they are, because
So
they're,
why
they're
haven't they?
advancing.
What?
They're
You just
advancing
stumped
deep into the
you just
Ukrainian
stumped the fuck out of your
offensive.
impact. You said Russia would use a nuke if they think they're winning. You said they already think they're winning. Impact?
Okay,
Yes,
so
because-
this is just like when will your impact
Like,
happen?
I
Are you
No,
serious?
this
It's
is
like,
you just
no,
dumped it in
but-
Cross-X.
No, Joanna, our argument is not Russia is going to use a nuke tomorrow. It is that battlefield conditions favor them. The plan
So what
reverses
happened
that
then?
trend, which means it's
This
like
is silly.
we don't know when Putin is going
10.
to use a
Oh
nuke.
no, not
but-
10. That
We
was a
have
lie.
8:35.
Okay. Sorry, bad habit.
Okay, close enough. More or less. Yeah.
Approximately.
Like, come on. No, come on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. 356. I'm sending. Okay, so the order will be the CAPK, the geoengineering counterplan, the greening counterplan, the pressure counterplan, the ICPF counterplan, or International Carbon Price Floor counterplan, and then forming trade.
So I need that one more time.
Same. CAP, geoengineering, greening, pressure, ICPF, advantage 1, advantage 2.
You might want to unplug just in case. And then just get it again after the tunes.
Yep. Yeah, no worries. Everyone got it? Good? Cool. CAPK can see the permutation just to test competition. There's no cross-applicable offense, so they don't get to do it in the 1AR. Geoengineering can see the permutation just to test their competition. There's no external offense in the FOSO. They can't cross-apply in the 1AR. The greening counterplan can see the permutation. The 2AC did not read an impact argument to the add-on, which means the 1AR does not get to do so. Now, the pressure counterplan can see the permutation just to test competition. Conditionality is good counter-interpretation. We did one neck flex, AF sandbagging, and side bias means the neck needs more conditional advocacy to have reactive strategy, especially given a new AF, which is a voter by reducing in-depth preparation and the possibility of clash independent voting issue. 2, processing debates. With multiple rules challenge, you have to sift through information, make tactical end-round decisions, which increases critical thinking skills. 3, argument innovation. Debaters won't introduce new strategies unless they have a fallback option. The alternatives overburden neg research. 4, proving the counter. 4, logic. Proving the counterplan is bad does not prove the plan is good. No offense. 1, it's inevitable. New apps, add-ons, link turns, and permanent explanations. 2, diminishing marginal utility. Infinite condos, unstrategic arguments inevitably overlap. 3, no skew is inevitable from fast speakers. Short T's and T, perms, 2AC choice and add-ons check. Dispo doesn't solve because it forces it allows the 2AC to dictate the negative block. Now the ICPC, the ICPF counterplan. The counterplan has the U.S. enter into negotiation to develop an international carbon price floor with just a few large emitters. Agreement between even the initial parties is sufficient to keep warming below 2 degrees. It creates a global floor that permits countries to go above and beyond, but builds in accommodations based on countries' development levels. For middle and lower income countries, the price itself is differentiated and allows participants to meet pricing requirements using price equivalent non-pricing policies. It solves better than the AF. 1, BTAs. The plan's BTA does not create leverage. They trigger global backlash and destroys climate co-op. The counterplan avoids backlash by generating price harmonization, which will be the one on all metrics, stopping leakage, protecting competitiveness and administrative costs. The ICPF is preferable. Chateau in 22. An ICPF is effective. BCA is protected against loss of competitiveness despite prices differentiated by development. The ICPF performs better than the standard BCA when it comes to limiting output losses. BCA has a considerable admin ever considered hostile by trade partners. Estimating carbon foreign good is difficult. BCA is seen as a trade barrier. International goodwill and lead to retaliatory measures. Contrary to the ICPF, BTA does not mitigate acceptance efficiently, while BTA's tax emissions and imports. The bulk of non-acting countries remain untaxed. In contrast, under ICPF, about domestic prices leads to substantial reductions in emissions. 2, free riding. The plan's unilateral commitment is pocketed by global free riders to avoid making domestic cuts, as demonstrated by all experience and simulation. Edenhofer and Alkenfels. In 15, cooperation research suggests without shared commitment, co-op will be fragile to collapse, even if it start out with forceful contribution. Only a common understanding can protect against free riders. Reciprocity creates incentive for co-op and mutual trust. A global price allows for reciprocal rewards and punishment, essential for stable cooperation. All experiences with climate protection, as well as countless other field contexts, strongly demonstrate and ubiquitous support of reciprocity. Only when the community can agree on a shared benchmark can co-op be rewarded and free riding accepted. The first argument is perm to both. It's simultaneous into implementation of the plan, while also implementing to negotiate an ICPF. That's the only interpretation that makes sense that links to BTA bad net benefits. By sequencing the plan provides international negotiation, the U.S. would have to adopt a unilateral BTA which collapses trade. Cooper and 15. There's large tension between the trading system and minimum tax will neutralize arguments about competitive any other system, including free-for-alls going to encounter competitive business. Constituencies of every country will claim they have to pay under the heading of climate, but country X don't pay the same. Therefore, we should pose trade barriers. Uniform minimum is the only way to reconcile the trading system with effective action on climate. That argument is decisive, and the perm fails to solve free lighting. Eden, Hucker, and Octas from the overview proves the perm eliminates leverage that the U.S. needs in negotiations to make commitments reciprocal. The perm allows countries to pocket and benefit from the plan's unilateral cuts. The 2AC did not explain how it functions or solves that benefit. So new 1ER extrapolation justifies new 2NR answers. But even the possibility of free riding collapses negotiations that was above. Multi-lat fails. Card equally links to them, but does not enter the counterplans mechanism. Only we have comparative evidence about the mechanism of an international carbon price floor perm counterplan. Two issues here. One, the 2AC reads 0 words. You should strike new 1ER answers. Two, they cannot go for perm to counterplan or any other perm because it never fiats the AFF ever. In terms of certainty, counterplan VADs do not matter. It is a BTA impact turn and fiats none of the plan. Perm to counterplan severs. It commits to a unilateral approach like the EU ETS. It is fundamentally distinct from the counterplan's multilateral approach service. In 21, there remains more differences between approaches. Paris will have voluntary rules, and yet the EU proposes CBF through ETS without regard for developing countries. ICPF differentiate by income levels, reduce pressure for B and for BA, keeping more keeping with voluntary. In Paris, the plan is only done in the world in the counterplan if there is agreement on the ICPF. Adopt requires mandatory auction. In Hoff and 5, the provision state to state shall adopt the measure. The committee use the word adopt to mean the state must record the measure. So does policy. Moron and 78 state urges us to construe policy to be direct. Only we decline Webster's defines policy as a definite court of action. Followed by government. The phrase policy indicates definite mandatory action. Should is mandatory and immediate. Sawyer and 17 ordinary. Common meaning of should is mandatory expediency and resolved is a definite course of action. Columns of 3 resolve, fixed and purchase and immediate. Random House in 6 resolve to come to an earnest decision. Immediacy and certainty are key to net ground. It's the only way to ensure predictable and stable links. AFF ground implementation is required for them to solve and limits. There are infinite future or conditionally possible AFFs. Perm to counterplan and then plan is intrinsic. Adds non-genuine consultation. Reject limited intrinsicness. Limited is an arbitrary and subjective standard that snowballs into all-out intrinsicness. Justifies fiating out of all DA links which contrive word salad perms. The AFF should have to defend immediacy. 1. Normatively, it's best for net ground. Now is key to politics. And trade-off links in specific scenarios for topic disads. Unifying generics are required to check AFF prolif. 2. Cross-apply all the definitions from the other perm and reasons why the certainty counterplans are good. Now, emitters say no is the last argument is a cardless assertion without a warrant in the 2AC, which means they do not get to renew evidence. Other countries say yes. The counterplan limits initial negotiations to large emitters and provides flexibility for national compliance, which involves pitfalls of past deals and say no args link more to the AFF. A country won't accept reciprocal action. There's zero chance they'll match a unilateral U.S. commitment that they think they could be rolled back, and fear for trade concerns. It's a basic science of cooperation. The plan has no hope of driving consensus. It's try dive. The counterplan cramps into 15 negotiation protocol. Common commitment. This ensure players other will match efforts and not free rights. Simply making free right visible leads to a weak artist unraveling according to policy and academic experts. A global price commitment would be the ideal base for a common commitment. Is agreeable, fair, easy to handle, less vulnerable to gaming after decades of failure. Attempted a fresh approach, creative with a sense of common price commitment. Partners of interest and the simultaneous of the action of countries under the ICPF is the magic sauce that causes acceptance. Perry and 21. The coordinated approach on ICPF with countries agreeing on ambition and acting simultaneously address concerns of the two unilateral ambition countries unilaterally reluctant to scale up as they bear the cost while benefits accrue to other. A mini-lateral approach where countries act simultaneously address concerns bigger benefits are always a key incentive to join the agreement. Now, the warming advantage. BTAs are useless. There's a fundamental design flaw where simplicity will be gained by industry to continue emissions, but complexity destroys administration. Their evidence is superficially intuitive but fails in practice. Implementation is a thicket of pitfalls, and empirics are NEG. Like 22 proposals prevent leakage of the former tariffs. Final warning requires challenging detailed draft of the first and last time U.S. tried in 93 to include BTU tax. Producer convinced members electricity to make aluminum was not taxable. Success inspired lobbyists for scores of industry to seek exclusion until the tax had more holes than cheese. There's plenty of time for similar success forensic behavior. They increase emissions by disincentivizing abatement. Cheng and Ishikawa 121. A model examine how tax with the BTA affect output or findings. Tax does not affect a high rate result in greater emissions. Increased incentive to abate leakage is eliminated in BTA, but emissions can be greater. The refund discourages abatement. Their only evidence is that their only answer is that leakage is not inevitable, but all of our evidence assumes they're hyperficial models, and they exclude variables to ensure their offense. Now, competitiveness is high and resilient and assumes all of their warrants to US and leads in R&D spending, patents, entrepreneurship, and overall GDP. Our evidence is future predictive and comparative. The number one factor in measuring competitiveness, staying power, is productivity. No country is close to catching, and long-term metrics like fertility rate, skilled labor, and immigration are all doomed by the US. Prefer our evidence is the only one that measures durability of US productivity. Number Schatz in 26. Let's say targeting a sector may not have an acceptable, appreciable effect on the economy. The creation of aviation in Brazil is a good illustration. Was a producer of jets, and the growth of jet per capita was ranked behind less technology-focused countries. Our economists' competitiveness is now taken to meet productivity. The goal competitiveness reports defines competitiveness as the level of productivity from this way. Achieve competitiveness goes to outcome rather than the objective. Now, the warming impact. The 2AC was awful on this argument. They did not answer adaptation and did not even appeal to scientific consensus, which means you should hold the line on new 1ER extrapolation. No warming impact. 1. It's empirically denied. The atmosphere has had 5 times the amount of CO2. Oceans have absorbed all CO2 in the atmosphere, and it helps plants act as carbon sinks, which is when it's a buck them too. Worst case scenarios are wrong. Schlosser calls for the climate sciences. Not one for apocalypse. Most recent IPCC neighbors, but extinctions not chances are zero. Science shows encouraging trends will make progress on clean energy, even though for the future progress that dire scenario looks closest to reality. Human extinction is not the main world. It depends where you live. Reaches have research to prepare, stop and recover climate change. Risk below. A lot of the other threats, nuclear war, pandemics far greater. 3, it'll be gradual and checked by adaptation or inevitable future breakthroughs. Mass in 19. Warning, in no way does it seriously threaten our species with reasonable mitigation adaptation. Humanity will continue climate models on specific scenarios. Scenarios 2 pessimistic, more reasonable is about 2 degrees Celsius warming. Not uniform greater polar region. Temperature rises steady, then starts to plateau. No sharp transitions. No catastrophe. Studies are not considering potential for major tech breakthroughs in fusion renewables or carbon removal advances are inevitable. Trade advantage. Trade has zero influence on war. The only 2AC warrant was interdependent, and the 1C evidence answered it. Previous disagreements thump, and studies demonstrate interdependence in volatile dyads like Russia and Ukraine do not live at the. Skip that. Supply chains are resilient. There's no impact. It's empirically thumped by previous disruptions, and they're inevitable. No reason the planned shorts of the chain in the face of black swans, which is well-burned. Supply chains resilient. Dresner 22. Closer look at the change reveals mismatch between heated rhetoric and actual understanding of economy issues are temporary. The more countries enmeshed in global change, the less likely it is to raise barrier supply. Cope better, predict a breakdown, proven to be overstated. Cut it at overstated. Russia victory in Ukraine is unlikely and geopolitically insignificant. Brooks in 23. Fact we did not read in the 1C, but fact that Putin felt need to innovate is a sign of weakness. It is ironic when unipolarity and is frequently declared. Russia struggling misadventure in Ukraine is greatly undermined. Russia's long-term prospects thanks to sanctions. Cut it at sanctions. Obviously, their argument just demonstrates that either there's no break for conflict because Russia has been losing now and is not winning either. Well, yeah, they're not winning now. Why would they use a nuke?
Okay, are you good?
Yeah.
How would a country free ride the plan?
What do you mean?
You said the plan causes free riding. How?
Yeah, our argument is that a unilateral commitment to a VTA encourages countries to sort of not reciprocate.
But, okay, so then their products are more costly. That seems like it would still solve both of our advantages because it would cause a shift to domestic manufacturing, and then it would still have the effect on restructuring trade. So, who cares?
Well, because it doesn't. It wouldn't do that because they would instead pocket the.
Okay, this is my question. What is the concession of the plan that they would pocket?
The concession? What do you mean
well, you were just about to say they pocket the concession. What's the concession?
Well, because it makes it so that they don't have to abide by the costs that the plan would impose. They would necessarily.
Wait, how? What? No, it does the opposite of that. It only imposes the cost on them.
How?
Because that's what a border carbon adjustment is.
Well, because
it just imposes a price on other countries.
Because it doesn't create leverage, right? Our argument is not that countries fall in line with the plan. It causes countries to backlash because they fear and dislike trade restrictions.
Okay, if countries fear and dislike the plan, and our argument in the 1AC is that, for example, China is significantly more emissions intensive than the United States, why would China say yes to a carbon price? If they could not say yes, and then nothing would happen.
Well, because all of our evidence says that it creates momentum for a carbon price.
Why? I'm asking you, you've read some poli-sci cards that are it's the secret sauce. Why?
Yeah, the evidence says that it creates momentum because it allows high emitters to negotiate in advance before countries take up unilateral policies, which allows the US and China to come to a common agreement about what is and is not an acceptable trade policy. That is necessary.
Okay, but your link argument on the disad is going to be China doesn't like the plan because they don't like to internalize the cost of their pollution.
Yeah, and the counterplan doesn't be on the plan. To the counterplan? They say yes to the counterplan because it allows China to negotiate what its trade relationship with the United States is.
If the counterplan allows China to weaken the international emission standards, how does it solve the case?
What do you mean, how does it solve the case? Our argument is that, one, it solves we've impact turned BTAs, for one.
I understand.
For two, it solves the case because it functionally results in a trade restriction that that all high emitters come to an agreement about.
Okay, but our argument is that the U.S. needs to impose a unilateral restriction because
and we've impact turned unilateral restrictions.
I understand that you think that is the basis of your dissat. How does it solve the case?
It solves the case because it's you're asking me the same question. I'm going to give you the same answer. It results in an agreement between high emitters about what is and is not
Do you think
an acceptable trade
contested
restriction.
the premise in the 2NC that China is less carbon efficient than the U.S.?
Not necessarily, but our argument is that they have an incentive to follow on the counterplan because the trade relationship is low now.
Gotcha. Wait, because the trade relationship is low now?
Well, the trade relationship, yeah. I mean, it's not ideal, but the counterplan generates uniqueness for that.
Okay, fair enough. We're gonna take this.
8:27.
Thanks, Melissa. 41 seconds?
I have 7:47.
Killing me, Buckton.
I don't know. No math required.
Wait, let me write that down. Okay. Elections, NDAA trade. We're good?
1 second.
No.
Okay.
No, that's good.
Yeah. No.
But yes, I will. That's not that.
Okay. Okay. All three of you, Dartmouth. Lovely. Concede Trump is restrained in the first term. Thoughts it means he cannot go for unique, especially the test because 2016 was fine, but it would also break the ass of the disallowed NEA. Holland said I get to pick fiat. Concede the plan happens after the NEA. We bottom of the document because least were necessary means that they cannot say the plan solves or that the plan that the dissent solve or the plan solves the dissent because it would happen after the NEA. So the dissent it happens first. Now the trade dissent it turns emissions. Only trade solves emissions. It facilitates green tech fusion, adaptation, scale response, and it's comparative free trade is more likely to reduce global emissions than pricing. That's my mom's way. Each one of these forms are the difference about benefits because that's the LCT including see benefits makes likely to reverse emissions are properly administered. Lower the free trade program cleaner environments is the most effective solution to reducing emissions, making it cheaper to adopt clean tech and trade. Third, the link below entrance, the emissions escalating trade tensions obstruct climate cooperation necessary to solve the tough power. BTAs destroy climate aspirations by decreasing the trade necessary to transition and blocking cooperation that's hidden in 22 innovations. The essential for net zero and new trade is a catalyst to trade stimulating growth necessary to fund transformations by trade the transition. The transition threatens trade pressure amounts for restrictions of use and such penalties or protections supposed to trade system. The implication of that is that we need only win a link to turn the first advantage, and they've never contested the link. Now, the uniqueness counterplan, they did not answer it. It solves the entire second advantage because it brings the US in line with the EU. Their Rourke card says that they solve Russia by, quote, ending the EU's dependence on Russia. The counterplan does that too, but it does not hamper because it does not hamper the EU's trade relative to the rest of the world because it gets rid of their CBAM, which is what is hampering them now and making them dependent on Russia. It also solves supply chains and globalization. Their Sutton card says that Biden needs to, quote, create markets between the US and Europe. The counterplan does it in the opposite way of the plan, but it creates the same markets because it eliminates barriers to trade via harmonization. Their Saha evidence just says that EU wants alignment with the US, which the counterplan achieves because it aligns them. They fully drop this. No answers, no deficit, no perm, no theory. I don't want to hear a word. And then the 1AR now. Surging protectionism also towards China ensures their military aggression. It causes war and collapses domestic norms. Especially 20 years being power, 150 years suspended military consuls depend heavily on trade. Also, talks to the world trade, restored to military conquest, more complex and never seen your faces volatile emissions, China suffering, still deny fast growing China. Afford to back down the state power, legitimate challenge for using exchange of the less shouted. Mishandling use policy showing China and obligating broken over Taiwan over other issues, not needing more China everywhere across world sanctions financially strategically stabilizing economically. The US needs to target export control speaking China and the means to motivate special territories go to the status quo, the East Asian and democratic norms. Winning that alone is premised off of the trade internal link, not the trade terminal impact. And the 2AC, I think, literally just read uniqueness and impact defense to trade proper, which does not answer that scenario. Now, uniqueness, trade is relatively stable. They are wrong that it is collapsing now. Their headlines are statistically negligible. Based on data, there is still a unique link to BTA, even despite any of their uniqueness arguments, despite stressors on the trading system, the WTO and free trade is largely respected. Sapir and Horn, they try to be concluded by responses to us. You have reactions to any parties no matter, thus we disagree with the trading systems already such a rate that causes further sovereign relations with expel WTO members, largely respect commitments, there's a continuing global members to avoid to remove trade barriers and a lot of stake in WTO. This threat in global trade is high. It's a consensus of global economic organizations. That's WILGI. The 24 trade growth is updating this year, according to the three major economic world, the IMF, OECD, WTO, which forecast updating in 24. The OECD is 2.3% this year, 3.25 IMF, 3%, 3.3% WTO, presents 2.6 and 3.3. This evidence is predictive. So offensive. The 24 global trade rebound 24 with projected 2.6 growth and even more robust 3.25 economists predict trade growth according to the robust by the WTO. Air negative predictions of trade demise are not borne out by detailed data. They underestimate the risk of true anti-trade policies by acting on a misconception that trade is already dead. That's Selster. The trade reported globalization of businesses in the market and trade and finance are fragmented. The problem with assumptions they does not back it up. A lot of closely dangerous even though governments adopt a policy showing the resilience of economic deal. One of those globalized though. Versus a misconception, not only do the same economies are still in the integrated, they're on the best of the cost of action, the fractional world economy, leaders must understand these true stacks. Our impact is sustained because existing conflicts are in areas with recognized procedure for dispute letting, but climate BTAs collapse trade they've conceded now. They've said domestic collapse of trade is inevitable. That is a 2AC assertion. How on earth could it benefit the US to allow the collapse of liberal trade? They have no card that demonstrates that this is coming. What administration would be okay with that? And how would lobbyists ever let it happen? If Dartmouth is right, that means it cannot solve any of the affirmative. A BTA is a minor piece in the enormous puzzle of liberal trade. They have no evidence that the plan could overcome this. Internal link turning it. Downsides of free trade are resolvable within multilateral free trade, but a man-to-man guarantees the impact on the 23 frame, regions limiting complaints, grounds for movement of goods, will survive countries not attracted, self-sufficient, international policy, trade break, better than neighbor policy, trade policy, step dynamics, forming poverty, and relevant international trade, as well as solution, all trade protects the same from international supervision of trade, these are difficult to see, English, social e-commerce promotes social progress to gain the greatest benefits of multilateral market, the debate on trade has recovered the international, the link, inclusion of a BTA collapses trade, it is perceived as protectionism, even if the F is technically compliant, it's a question of perception, but the F is not technically compliant to the planned risk global BTA proliferation, which is an independent link, because conflicting BTAs cause trade friction. Dartmouth has never had a card the plan is compliant. You know, immediately it triggers an enormous trade fight. Only our internal link has a threshold and a time frame. Theirs requires some nebulous unsustainability claim, but ours is fights. The plan solves its absurd. 1. Time frame explained above. 2nd, the kind of plan solves it better. It avoids immediate fights, but guarantees we can solve building consensus. 3rd, the plan would only solve the tail end risks of climate of trade, but does not assume the immediate fights that begin occurring. And the China link is certainly not solved by the plan because they've not a card on it. The next argument was no protectionist spiral. The warrant for this argument was not impact defense, but rather that countries will accept the plan. We read evidence that they will fight it in the WTO, which means that it's clearly not accepting the plan. Even then, the recent studies demonstrate that the more likely response to the modeling or cooperation is the link. That's Boringer. In 20 we see repulsive and voted secret cooperation recent analysis show consideration of retail reduces nebulous proportions systems that may be risk trade. WTO combined with BCAs may not be sufficient for religious as a country that are rising negotiations meeting the countries to reach commitments. China respond to these their proposal was saying such a policy undermining international efforts and Indonesia, Thailand show the BCA's protections. BCA's to undermine co-op that also answers their internal link argument was that one-off protection policies do not cause the impact, but that is not the case because we have specific evidence to the link. Now, the last card was the Bretton Woods evidence. It's a broad thesis about countries doing their own policies, even if that's true in a vacuum. We read specific links to the plan. It's particularly true for China. This meow in 24 reform tariffs implemented really impacted on price of difficulties of water price will be rise weakening the original price of reducing the export volume tariff being the closer to the export working in China's the U.S. is the Chinese largest export working around the import tariff high energy consumption will use influence the carbon tariff. And the carbon tariff result when China loses market share of U.S. in the United States from which also U.S. market industrial chamber manufacturing will be impacted. It shocked their economy. Zhao and Yarmy in 22 model used to protect U.S. China's trade carbon tariff China's greater export touching the province sees a higher tariff which increases the trade costs bringing shocks to China's economy. Only minimal contribution conversation result in free China will be penalized economically. Mark that penalized economically.
Okay, 747.
I could look in that team's team club, but the likelihood of looking anything there is yeah. In the Georgetown one, or I don't think so. Like, not like super spicy, but like we're a bunch of people out that I like. So.
Is it okay if I mess with my computer just to save the document? So I
Of course.
Okay. I
Yeah.
swear.
Yeah.
I'm just copy pasting into a document.
We're all adults here. It's fine.
Okay, I'm good. I'm no longer messing with my computer.
One.
Can't get across this document. No.
2 and 2 is impact turning disadvantages.
I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been
Yeah,
there
yeah.
for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good. I don't know if I have these same starts, but I've been, same arc. Yeah. Cool.
What is that yellow can?
It is a new tonic.
Can I get a little more?
It's,
Is it like coffee?
Productivity drink, not an energy drink.
Like coffee? No.
No.
Like juice? But
It's just like an energy drink thing
okay.
with like some ginseng in it for the caffeine.
Sure.
It's good.
Sure.
Are you a coffee drinker?
Not really. I'm so
How
cold.
about juice? Because I'm not one of you. Give yourself a little splash of sugar. A little bit of juice. A little bit of juice to juice me up. There we go.
Treat yourself.
Except they took away all the things. They're all gone.
Oh.
Thank God I don't gotta give another speechless to it. Oh, secret juice.
Let's go.
I got it.
Yeah. Yeah. We just said it makes the game separable.
Cool.
It's recorded that I couldn't open my juice.
There you go.
Thank you.
Big suitcase.
It's juice around me.
Well, it's just like it's so full.
Oh.
What tricks do you have in there? Right. Right on, right on.
Just sent it. Okay, the order, if everyone's good, is the first advantage, trade advantage, the pressure, the IPCF counterclaim, the trade.
Case, pressure counterclaim, ICPF, disf.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I don't. I know this guy.
Okay.
They're good.
Sorry, what was the last? What was the last step? Great.
Yeah, get this up.
Okay. Trade, or warming trade, pressure, ICPF, trade. I'm good, whatever.
Where'd you get your different option here? I just had that realization.
Yeah, no, just even days are so bad for that. Like you always think, like, oh, next time I'll play with advance. Never.
I did look yesterday. I don't think they were changing
reporting has grown by 3 times in data. About 80% of US traded carbon is currently available. Info gathering results in the existing fuel access to taxes act as model empirics are relevant because this evidence cites old examples, not a recent info gathering and increased reporting. Note PTA doesn't increase emissions. The plan decreases emissions, incentivizes US decarbonization because companies become more competitive and adopt the advantage of the BTA, and incentivizes foreign emission because US trade is an important share of companies' markets, and companies want to continue having access to the US market. Competitiveness, defense, defense, we're not going for that impact, but there's yes, climate change does cause extinction. They drop that it causes cascading system failure via the food insecurity, food economic shocks, migration, conflict, and food wars, which they is not an answer to argument. Our argument isn't just hothouse and there is some level of yes, worst case science confirms that it reaches at least 8 degrees in the next 30 years, which the cost of one feedback loops, no, it's not gradual cascading system crisis proof that it collapses quickly. Trade. Drop deglobalization impact to cause extinction. It means that it forgoes cooperation on international issues like climate inequality and pandemics, all of which escalate to war and prevent systemic adaptation to existential threats. No supply chains are not resilient. Doesn't assume China's control over semiconductors, which is unique because it allows them to weaponize the semiconductors and launch war in Taiwan, which is the Martin evidence. No Russian victory. Now Ukraine war does cause extinction. Goes nuclear because Russia will use nukes. Yes, they are winning because they are controlling energy. This evidence is and their evidence is old. Ours is from October 20th and says that they're winning because of energy control.
50 are
New apps are good. They cause critical thinking and argumentative innovation and encourages a NEG argument adoption.
yeah.
No BTAs don't cause backlash. Companies don't, or that will be answered on the trade dissent. There's no free riding when it's fiat. Companies or the U.S. unilaterally mandates that companies lose access to U.S. Or have to that they charge a higher cost to imported goods with a high carbon intensity. This links to them though because the counterpoint says that this part says that cooperation is fragile. So only the counterpoint creates free riding of other countries. The permutation to both shields and benefit. If countries are willing to decarbonize, it proves that there won't be backlash, and it means that they won't that they will be compliant with the BTAs, so they're able to still access U.S. markets. No, this does not link to free riding. The counterpoint does free riding. They say it removes leverage, but the counterpoint doesn't have leverage either. It's not a conditions. Counterpoint is unilateral. 2EC2 was multilateral, or 2EC2 multilateralism. It fails. They didn't read a singular card on this, but it fails. There are evidence cites history. The Kyoto Protocol failed because big emitters pulled out, and no big emitters are reporting their NECs now. History proves, and multilateralism fails. We've never had a successful climate negotiation. Blackman and Bell 12-4 conferences passed with no breaking predictable patterns, ritualistic species, destroying run-of-the-mill factors, and enemy results all over the place. Judges too easy to derail one or two countries and the rational for one of the other countries to act. The antidote is small marches progress, much real demonstrates progress can be good to countries with arms to illustrates progressing without some major players. It's true of a global carbon price. Tampa et al. 24 affected species of eliminate international organizations alone. Advocating for alignment on global carbon price discussion to prove possible. Your jury's proposals is tested for lack of outcomes. The US EU negotiation on global provide sharing example how to bring parties policy. Limit international discussion with bilateral approaches are unlikely to deliver significant reductions. There it does not link to us because the plan does not rely on countries modeling BCAs. It just means that countries have to comply by decarbonizing their companies in order to access the US market. The tax is binding. Obviously, too, this is relevant for supply chains because the EU specifically cooperates, and the counterpoint does not solve but the counterpoint doesn't solve China, which is a significant emitter. No, their evidence isn't comparative. Their evidence assumes the IPCF gets implemented, says that solves, doesn't say that countries would say yes to it. The bottom cards about yes cooperation and the simultaneous action is unique. That is wrong. The U.S. The counterpoint isn't simultaneous action. It's only the U.S.
So if it's all the
And if the counterpoint does solve, then it proves that it is not sufficient emissions reductions because China China is far less carbon and energy efficient, which means the only way that they would agree is if the counterpoint gets watered down to the point where it does nothing. Trade. Trade does not solve emissions. Carbon intensity is high now. That's the data from the 1EC. No, it does not link to emissions because countries must comply with the tax, which means that it is binding regardless of whether it solves the unique discount plan. There's no solvency argument. The 1EC until we get new deficits. Our evidence says that CBAM is good. It is the only way to reach the climate trade nexus point, which causes the EU-US cooperation. The reason they're dependent on Russian natural gas exports is because they have not decarbonized their economy with natural gas is far more carbon intensive, which proves that only the affirmative solves China militarization is solved by the plan because it solves our is because supply chains is the most proximate way that China escalates. Trade is not sustainable. Trade is not sustainable now. Sustainable now. Our evidence is that there's a trade crisis because the globalization is becoming illegitimate because countries are deprioritizing domestic issues. So mission-oriented trade is key. This trade crisis is different. Helena 24 missions defies globalization. While film history of the past work is attempting to domestic and women see policy crisis, distinct interaction crisis, highly serious of crisis. Based on globalization and empowerment analysis, analysts critical of class against globalization proposals as both. Speculative about globalization is a descriptive aptly described the moment. The pandemic effects will be long-lasting. Helena 24 pandemic trade severe global shutdown shut the China trade hours of real estate countries with export restriction pandemic real vulnerability global markets. Governments trying to show themselves out over first criticism of globalization, but all the countries previously enthusiastic of globalization began a new trend such as Modi. The sentiments of organized health crisis waned. Ukraine causes a wave of autarky. Helner the 24 invasion of Ukraine, Russian sanctions unravel economic principles of massive pressure across global actions illustrated multiple levels, states, weaponization, major tremendous everywhere. As concerns endure, governments are seeking economic welfare, lessons only reversing changes of interdependence, work too hard, interdependence, and extend the Biden thumb on elections, drops, China's already shocked, Herald 24, U.S.-China, the trade disrupt jobs, so community little corporate impacts, let's provide product support for de-risking fuel trade. Fuel trade skeptics, trade being numerically high, Israel argument isn't just about the net volume of trade, but the legitimacy of trade rules and desire for globalization too. If it is just about numbers and volume of trade, they haven't read an impact to just a little bit less trade statistically. There's no trade friction via the WTO compliance. They have not read a NEG part that has an impact to WTO backlash, but our evidence that countries would comply because they value the access to the U.S. market. The link does not outweigh on time frame the plan because they haven't read a fast internal link, but the plan is the only way to save the global trade system because already the evidence is that it is losing legitimacy now because countries are focusing far too much on globalization without solution-oriented policies that solve their global economy, and the modeling link is wrong because the plan doesn't seek modeling. The countries will fight it, but expect that will comply eventually. That's the work evidence. No China interlink recession is inevitable. Standard 5-9 October is world Australia's recession on risk. Recession in China growth is slowing. This might as well be a recession. There's a whole world. China seems to be feeling a deflation cycle.
We had
356.
356. Starting.
was like, do I have crazy 2AR nerves, or did that actually happen?
No, it got toasted. It was freezing and now it's like put you to sleep warm.
Right, okay.
Yeah, it is way better. Okay, the order is the trade DA, the ICPF, and warming trade.
Okay.
Panel good?
Free trade outweighs is the biggest impact on the debate and has the fastest internal link to every 1AC scenario. Collapse causes tit-for-tat retaliation of tariffs and creates a global environment where cooperation over warming and other existential risk is impossible, which means there's only a risk of the negatives impact if we win a risk of a link. Since we're only going for uniqueness, the dishat turns the case. Trade is a bigger internal link to emissions, allows for tech diffusion and scalable responses. Only we have comparative evidence. Beaumont says BTAs do not promote emissions reduction, but free trade do, and it's a more effective solution. So winning the link alone turns warming. We don't need to win all of trade collapses, just fight sufficient to stop diffusion and tech adoption and drop hidden. Innovation is key to net zero, and only trade makes it possible. The tech needed to decarbonize to comply with the BTA is not possible now. The link is massive and guarantees a trade war. You know it causes trade fights immediately. They have never answered that. Our internal link comes immediately after collapse of the global trade system and shuts China out of the global trade system, which causes retaliation. Their internal link to trade requires some structural claim that even if true, the plan accelerates, which is part of the DA they've never answered, which does not answer the quick fight part. 1. Huffbauer says that the BTA is perceived as protectionism, even if they win the plan, could be lawyered as technically WTO compliant. The plan creates incentives for tit-for-tat retaliatory tariffs and escalates and causes conflicts. 2. Friedman says that PCAs lead to loss of jobs for countries like Russia and China, which creates national security tensions, which diminishes cooperation over decarbonization, which internally turns a warming advantage and ensures our impact outweighs. Now the uniqueness debate. We do not need to win that trade is broadly sustainable. There is a unique link to BTAs despite that. Superior and Horn say that even despite the AFF's claims that WTO and free trade are largely respective, and says a unique link from a BTA would upend that. The card does line by line on a break for us. It says we disagree. The system is in such a array that costs are soaring relations to small. It takes 2 PhDs over Holland's rambling, but they're wrong about global trade. It's high and will continue to grow. Wilkie says that all 3 economic organizations, IMF, OECD, and WTO, agree that trade is high and stable. They have the best data available, and the card is predictive of increases. Prefer this card about short-term effects, even if pandemics or Ukraine created instability structurally. They have not reduced numerical trade quantities. We do have an impact to that. Trade is linear and cascades as per their 1AC evidence, but they drop sustainability claims, underestimate the true data, and rely on misconceptions that trade is dead and globalization is failing. Pandemics in Ukraine do not apply to the China scenario. There was no explanation of the Biden argument in the 1AR or why it thumps. If you do not understand it from the 1AR, you cannot let the 2AR re-explain it. The 1AR China card is about the effect trade had on jobs, not the trade itself. Now, the internal link argument. The WTO backlash causes our impact. Only we have specific evidence to China. Bohringer says BCA has been floated but not done because of the link and impact. The case cannot solve the DA because our DA is faster. The immediate effect of the plan is backlash, and only our China, as says Beckley, says it causes war quickly, which they have no defense to. Now, the ICPF counterplan. Counterplan solves the entirety of the case. It results in negotiated rules of the road for trade that prevent global trade wars. The 2NC Chateau evidence that the 1AR conceded is the best card in debate on the counterplan's mechanism comparative to a BTA. It says the counterplan is sufficient to scale up and resolve all 1AC internal links, and says that it is preferable because China and other countries, because it starts with a small group of high emitters. Now, the reason why unilateral reductions fail is because countries fear that they don't understand or cannot predict the trade effects it will have on their economy. Obviously, the counterplan's binding negotiation measures with those high emitters would result in an agreement that would resolve their internal links sufficiently. Judge kick the counterplan if we lose the permutation. It's a logical extension of conditionality, and they did not extend it in the 1AR permutation link. Permutation that does not solve because the link is massive. They've never contested it. Unilateral BTA obviously kills it. Multilat fails is not a 2AR because they don't have a card that says that is comparative to the counterplan's mechanism. It is irrelevant if Kyoto or other forms of international carbon pricing regimes have failed, because only our evidence is predictive and suggestive about what other international countries' reaction to the counterplan would be. If the uniqueness arguments about momentum for trade relationships occurring now is true, then obviously there is an incentive to include or agree to the counterplan. Actually, back to the DA, there's no China econ collapse. Their evidence says the economy is not great but has no time frame. The plan pushes it over edge, and only we have a brink, but the card cites no stats and has no qualifications. Back to the counterplan, sorry. They cannot go for say no argument. They have dropped 2NC evidence about creating a small group of emitters being sufficient to resolve potential concerns about free riding. The free riding argument does not link to us. It obviously demonstrates that there is a global agreement that creates incentives for those countries to follow on because of the mechanism of the counterplan, the warming advantage. They cannot go for this. They have conceded multiple warrants about warming not being existential. One, drop that it'll be gradual, and then breakthroughs solve technologies and other mechanisms and intervening actors resolve their impact, but never ours. Two, Kroll is much better. They have made no appeals to scientific consensus or really any terminal impact calculus in the 1AR. It says that even the IPCC, which is the global organization responsible for creating alarm about climate change, is not warning that human extinction is a concern that their impacts their impacts cause. Now, the trade advantage. The trade advantage is basically zero. The counterplan solves the entirety of it because it results in those countries coming to an agreement about what those trade agreements look like. But the supply chain's impact is empirically denied. They cannot predict black swans, which proves it's inevitable. There's no reason or warrant for why the plan is sufficient to be able to overcome potential future risks like pandemics, etc., and demonstrates that it's either inevitable or the plan is insufficient to resolve them in the short term. Russian controlling energy is irrelevant. It's a question of incentives for conflict, i.e., the audience cost of Putin using a nuke is obviously too fearful. Is obviously too concerning for him because it would lose his domestic political population and cause international and turn him into an international pariah. We are far ahead on trade turns warming and have a counterplan with a blip of a deficit, and that solves advantage two. Only our disad is a clear break, and the link alone turns a case, and the counterplan is a bonus that solves most of the case, which means even if they go for a try or die 2AR about them having a solvency, only we have a risk of a turns case argument, which means we access their offense, but they can never access ours.
Okay. 313.
Yeah.
advantage, warming advantage, counterplan as odd. Jesus Christ. Have people seen The Good Place? I feel like that scene where they're like, every time you think about how hot it is on the train, it gets like 3 hotter. Okay.
I'm sorry.
Trade advantage, warming advantage, counterplan as well. Great. The Russian impact outweighs on time frame. The Ukraine war is escalating now. Russia is rapidly penetrating Ukraine's defenses. They could use the nuke any day. Their impact is nebulous bullshit. And I think that you can decide the debate by reading the 1AC trade impact, which is usually their 1AC impact card to this extent, which is why they do not read an external impact in this debate. It does not think trade is linear. It says that we need to from a new trade system which demonstrates the impact to our turn on the dissent. It does not make an argument about linear trade or linear interdependence, etc., which means that only we have an external impact. The Ukraine impact outweighs their defense is wrong. There were no audience costs. They did not read a card about it. Our evidence analogous to why the US nukes used nukes in World War II. It says that Putin will want to win quickly and produce a favorable settlement. The card before that says that Russia's battlefield success in Ukraine is funded by European LNG purchases, which means that a clean break now and cementing US-EU energy alliance now is key. The counterplan best cannot do that fast enough. Escalation can happen any day because Putin is making their defenses and it outweighs because the US and the Russia have they do it. But two biggest arsenals, the two does not have a clear impact or an explanation for US-China war. They do not have uniqueness for a China scenario. They turn them into a variety argument. Our evidence answers that it is new in the two and R, but our want to see impact evidence says that if Putin is winning the war, he can manage the audience cost because he would be flush with resources. They would not have to care about the LAO if he is successfully restored part of the old Soviet Union. Now the subcontinent, the supply chain defense, the warming advantage concede, it is not existential, so there's no straight turn on the the counterplan. Say no, I think is a crush for us because their evidence is abstract political science bullshit that says maybe this could be the magic cause, and certainly these actors would have incentive to come to the table in good faith. You would also think that about Paris, Kyoto, Copenhagen, etc., but international countries did not, and our evidence actually states the history and the empirics. Their evidence, they say that their evidence is about how countries would react, but all of it is aspirational. Drop the 1AR and day that it is aspirational about how about if the ICPF was successfully implemented, then what would happen and how would that solve? But it does not say that it does not make a predictive claim about that would happen. The we see evidence is comparative between the unilateral BCA approach, which forces other countries on board using the U.S.'s market leverage versus international negotiations. Cites history, though it says they failed. The 1AR first card cites history. It says no one will say yes. It's proven by the failures of Kyoto, Copenhagen, and Paris, where the sort of costly emissions reduction policies people believed that they could just rewrite and other countries would not, or they were skeptical because they thought that other countries would not follow through on their commitments, which would impose a cost only on them, which means that they did not then sort of follow through on those international agreements, which means that free riding only goes one way. It is our say no argument. The plan unilaterally imposes the cost on other countries, so they cannot free ride it, obviously, which was the point I was getting at in 2 and C cross-X. However, countries would fear that they would get free ridden by the counterplan if they did emissions reductions or did whatever the counterplan does, which is not entirely clear in the 2 and R. If other countries then defected, which is their motive for saying no, and has historically been, finally, the final 1AR card says that is true of a quote global carbon price, so it is certainly comparative to the mechanism of the counterplan. You have to explain in the decision, if you are going to vote on this counterplan cells, why a country would say yes to the counterplan when they can simply say no to a price and not have a cost imposed on them. Why would they say yes to a thing that they could just the alternative to it is nothing happens? That is an ineffective threat. If I say run and get me a Coke right now, or I'm going to do nothing, obviously you're not going to do it. The 2 and R does not contain a real leverage argument about sort of leveraging the plan that is outlined into the counterplan text, which means that you cannot vote on that. They think that it will be costly is our argument. They would simply not do it because it is costly, or if they are correct that the sort of counterplan has switches backlash, that is our no-link argument on the dissent, which means that permutation do both about some residual offense, which is the basis of our no-link argument on the dissent. The 2 and C Chateau evidence is abstract comparative or abstract political science nonsense. It is preferable because it starts with high emitters now. Is our argument because since they are high emitting, it is costly to them. Uniquely unilateral reductions fail. I would say no argument. It is not binding if no other countries join. The cards are comparative to the counterplan mechanism, and their cards are not meaningfully predictive. Just that. As alluded to in the case they are relying on our 1AC impact card, is not making a linear claim. It is not making a claim about US-China competition or the sort of volume of free trade declining. It is not saying that the thing that matters is how many goods and services are exchanged in the global economy. It says that it matters that we have a liberal system of cooperation that sort of brings countries together to solve problems like like poverty, climate change, etc., which means that they do not have an impact on any of this US-China stuff, and only the impact only goes affirmative. Now, uniqueness is a crush for us. One, the the thumper on the election stats says that Biden imposed massive climate tariffs in 2023 on China, which answers their sort of China-specific scenario. The obviously individual protectionist policies are high now. They are consistent across the Trump and the Biden administration, which is also substantiated by the 1AC card, which answers their leaks about shock, short-term time frame outweighs, etc. Because individual protectionist policies are high in the status quo. Their card about even if that is true, the sort of trade system is resilient is from 2020. It does not know about COVID or Ukraine or other thumpers. The 2AC evidence and the 1AR evidence says those produce systemic crises. The first one-year cards describes this as a poly-crisis that is different from other predictions of the collapse of the trade system because it, the different from other crises of the collapse of the trade system because Ukraine and COVID exposed the sort of problems with neoliberal free trade and the sort of efficiency is king paradigm. The plan might be a blip on the global radar and countries might be unhappy initially, but it provides a proof of concept of a new model of trade the countries view as an asset. It solves domestic problems on a hyper-globalized model of absolute liberalization where free trade is king. That latter model, which that requires you to accept created shocks like COVID and Ukraine that expose the inadequacies of neoliberal efficiency above all must maximize the volume of goods. That prompts a long-term backlash for countries who things like reshoring and the sort of prioritize national independence above all. The one you see impact card, which is also a uniqueness claim, is from the director of the WTO, which answers their card on 2020, and the sort of supply shocks from COVID and Ukraine demonstrate that we need a new model of trade. The numbers of a quantity of trade is totally fake, and that their impact is not actually about it. There is not an external China scenario, and the one of our cards says that a China recession is notable. It says that they are entering a debt deflation cycle, and it's predictive about a China recession, which means that that is certainly not external. Now, WTO backlash states by their work evidence, our uniqueness evidence, and districts individual predictions have caused their impact in the work of the one should filter. It said there may be dissatisfaction initially when countries come around to the plan and comply with trade restrictions to preserve highly valued access to the U.S. market. It is pretty extensively highlighted and very good. It concludes the effect outweighs the individual discontent. They've always dropped the internal link to the advantage, which is that if we reorient the sort of trade around climate solutions and allow countries to produce domestic policy that restores the legitimacy of the international trade system, which means it is retired after the affirmative. Good debate.
Good debate.
We'll see.
NEG Dog, who's just